Hey guys, so this is the video on how to do the fuel filter for your FZJ8080 series Landcruiser. Pretty straightforward, and I imagine it's fairly similar on the 100 series if you've got the 4.5 FZ engine as well, but needless to say, we're just going to show you how to do it on the 80 series today, and we'll go through what you're going to need and how to do it. So first things first, make sure you have all your equipment ready. So you're going to need a couple of axle stands. I've just put this one here so you can see. It's actually just there as a bit of extra support, and of course your lift so you can get your wheel off. You're going to need to remove your spare wheel, and you're also going to need the parts. Now what I've got here are the two banjo bolts for the fuel filter. Now it's a good idea to go to your local Toyota dealership or online to get some replacement banjo bolts, because yours may actually break or are pretty shot when you remove them. So it's a good idea to have some of these, plus you should have a couple of new washers as well. You'll obviously need a OEM fuel filter to go with it. Steer away from cheap nasty knockoffs, because you'll just need to replace it pretty quickly. You'll also better served opening your bonnet to allow a bit of light in. I've actually gone the extra distance and used some LED rope lighting so I could bend it around the area to give a bit better light. And of course you'll see the fuel filter just down there past the red dipstick, and we'll get stuck in how to remove it. Also, a pair of latex gloves if you're not allergic will also serve you well. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, now this can really be a poo of a job, but I've seen to getting some progress here. Now if you look up here, I've just left the socket on the end of the banjo bolt there. This is on the rear side, not the inlet side of the fuel filter, and you'll see the fuel's already started to drip through. I haven't loosened it off too much more than that, as I just wanted to see how much fuel was actually going to come out. I've loosened the pressure on the fuel line to try and take the air out so there's not too much fuel comes out. I've been told you probably lose a couple of ounces. And of course the other side of the fuel filter there, that bolt is also been loosened, so I haven't actually touched the rear mount, the top mounting bolts to the bottom of the intake there. Don't do those yet, because you're going to need the strength to crack these banjo bolts, as they are almighty tough. So anyway, so I thought I'd bring this up at this stage of it, and be very careful of your knock sensor. Just behind the socket there, you'll see the knock sensor on the side of the head. You have to be very careful not to break that. Some people actually remove it. I was just very careful not to hit it, but it is recommended that you do remove the knock sensor so that you don't break it. And some people have also pinched the fuel line. I've tried using a couple of things like vice grips to try and pinch the fuel lines. None of them really quite did what I wanted. Maybe if we pinched it up here somewhere is probably a good idea, just to take a bit of that fuel pressure out. Or as some people have also done, they've also, once they've pulled this fuel filter out, they've actually let it hang. There's a thread on I Hate Mud where the thing's actually hanging about here, and he's done the work that way. But I think you really need to be very careful with that the top fuel line hose, which is connected to this side of the fuel filter. It runs straight up under the intake. You need to be very careful not to bend that, because it's going to make it very hard to slot it back in once you replace the filter. So we'll move on to the next stage. Alright, so we made progress. We have successfully, well, we've loosened both the side banjo bolts. That's the easy part. You'll just need your, what was it again, 17mm socket on the end, or ring wrench, whatever you got available to you. Just again, be very careful of that knock sensor. Now the under mounting bolts are the real tricky part in my opinion. This first one up there is not so difficult. That's quite easy to get to, but the one on the other side is really difficult to get to. I recommend going up from underneath using an extension bar with a 12mm socket on the end, and you'll be able to crack it. So I had to basically lie right under here straight up to get to it, so you will need an extension to get to it, and hopefully it's not on too tight. Mine wasn't, because I'm guessing the previous mechanic or owner, whoever's done it, if I'm guessing it's been done at some stage, has made it easy, and it wasn't torqued on too tightly, which you shouldn't need to do. And I'm going to get into when you install your new filter, in order to save the anguish of putting this one back in, is that you actually cut out a tab out of your the far mounting side, so this will go straight back up like that, and you'll see what all ends up happening. Once you screw the bolt in first, you can actually just slide that on and then fasten that one in like that. It's going to make it much easier for you. So just do a test to make sure your bolt actually fits in the little tab you've cut out, and that should make life a lot easier. So that was a little tip I picked up off I Hate Mud, and yeah, should serve me well. So we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, so this next bit will seem pretty straightforward. Here's the old filter. So as you can see, the mounting bolts and the inlet side and the outlet side. And what will seem pretty clear when you do this is how to put it back in. So once you've disconnected the fuel line, which is hanging over here somewhere, I've actually just stuffed this silicon, what do you call it, goo neck, I think you call it, anyway, just to stop any dripping, but the line's actually depressurized, so there's no fuel being pumped to the end, so you should be okay. But I'll keep the bucket down here just to collect a little bit of fuel, and I really didn't leak much fuel, guys, so I really don't think you need to disconnect the fuel pump in these things. I think you just need to loosen the cap on your fuel, gasoline, whatever you want to call it, and that way you can actually depressurize the lines, and you shouldn't lose too much at all. It's really just going to be the fuel that's contained within the filter. And then we can get stuck into putting the new one on. So just make sure when you do this, you're going to need your gasket set, which will just be like washers, and of course your two new banjo bolts. Don't reuse these things, guys. They pretty much had it. Only desperate, you know, the gasket rings are a bit old and decrepit, so get new ones. You won't regret it. And we can get stuck into the installation, which is really just going to be a carbon copy of how we took it out. Okay, so just thought we'd follow up. So I'm just putting in the inlet line first. So chuck your new washer on the bolt side, and then between the fuel line and the filter side. So there's your two washer / gaskets, and just keep doing it finger tight. You'll find that when you're doing it finger tight, this is all loose. Obviously, it's not bolted in anywhere, and you should be able to put it in most of the way finger tight, and then you'll be able to stick it up. And you'll see where the I've already put the bolt in. Where are we? Here. So I've already put the bolt in, and that will help me slide. Sorry guys, there's really not a lot of room. Yep, so I'll be able to slide that on directly onto the bolt, which you can see up there, okay? And that will make it so much easier to get it back on and off in the future as well. And then just obviously torque them up a little bit tighter once you're on. All right. I've just started the car up, everything runs well. It needs a few pumps obviously at the start to get the fuel through the lines. The last thing you want to do before you put all your guards and wheels and everything back on is just to make sure there are no leaks, and everything's looking good. So we've tightened the banjos, we've torqued them correctly, and there is no leaks. The gasket washers are holding up nicely. So that's how you change the fuel filter, in your 1FZ FE.